Today's story comes from someone who discovered that, sometimes, the person you think of as an enemy can unexpectedly turn into an ally. I never believed I'd ever thank another woman for breaking up my marriage, but life has its own cruel sense of irony. My name is Ryan, and this is how my wife's betrayal led me into the most surprising partnership I could have ever imagined. 12 years. That's how long Natalie and I had been married before everything unraveled. We met back in college, tied the knot right after graduation, and built what I thought was a steady, ordinary life. Natalie worked as a marketing coordinator at a tech company. I had a stable accounting job at a mid-sized firm. Together, we owned a modest house in the suburbs, shared it with our golden retriever, Buster, and settled into what felt like a simple but happy life. Of course, the warning signs were there. They always are. Nights at the office started piling up. Business trips that didn't make much sense suddenly became frequent. She put unusual effort into her appearance, claiming it was just about self-confidence. Her phone, once casually left on the coffee table, was now always glued to her hand, screen down. Always down. But I trusted her. After 12 years of marriage, you don't throw everything away over gut feelings. At least, that's what I kept telling myself as I watched our relationship quietly deteriorate. The breaking point came one Thursday in October. Natalie said she'd be working late on a campaign project, but something urged me to swing by her office around 9 p.m. The parking lot was nearly deserted except for the security guard's vehicle. Her car was nowhere in sight. It hadn't been there for hours. I barely slept that night. When she finally walked in around 11:30, faintly carrying the scent of cologne that wasn't mine, I didn't need confirmation. I already knew. Still, knowing and proving are two different things. I wasn't ready to detonate our lives based on suspicion alone. The real proof came 3 weeks later. Natalie was in the shower, her phone charging on the nightstand. The screen lit up with a text from someone saved as Conference Room B. The preview alone made my stomach twist. Can't wait to feel you again tomorrow. Hands trembling, I tried to unlock the phone. Her birthday?
No.
Our anniversary?
No.
Out of desperation, I tried Buster's birthday, and the screen opened. Within 30 seconds, 12 years of marriage collapsed. There were months of explicit texts, photos burned into my memory that I wish I'd never seen, hotel bookings carefully timed with my work hours, lies stacked one after another. His name was Derek Morrison, more than just a colleague, and apparently they'd been entangled for over 8 months. I screenshotted everything, my heart pounding so violently I thought it might burst. Then I set the phone back exactly where it was and sat in the living room until sunrise, staring blankly into space. The confrontation happened the next morning. I printed a handful of messages and left them beside her coffee cup on the kitchen counter. When she came downstairs in her robe, the blood drained from her face the second she saw them. "Ryan, I can explain," she began. I raised a hand. "Don't. I know everything. I have everything. The only question now is, what happens next?" What followed was the hardest conversation of my life. She sobbed, apologized, begged me to forgive her. She swore it was only physical, claimed she still loved me, pleaded to salvage what we had. But then she said something that cut deeper than all the messages I'd found. "Derek understands me in ways you don't. He makes me feel alive again." That was the moment I knew we were finished. Not because of the sex, not even the lies, but because she'd already chosen to seek with him what she no longer believed she could find with me. Maybe she was right. Maybe we had drifted apart over the years. But instead of speaking to me, instead of trying to repair what was broken, she chose to start over with someone else while keeping me as her backup plan. I told her I wanted a divorce. I told her I'd already spoken to a lawyer. And I told her she had 1 week to sort out her living situation, because I refused to live under the same roof with someone who'd been deceiving me for 8 months. That weekend, she moved into her sister's place while searching for an apartment. The house felt empty without her, but for the first time in months, it also felt honest. Buster seemed puzzled, pacing at first, but dogs adapt quicker than humans. The divorce proceedings moved swiftly. I had all the proof I needed, and she knew it. Her lawyer urged her to settle quickly and cleanly, which she did. We divided everything evenly. She left with her car and personal belongings. 12 years of marriage reduced to paperwork and signatures. But that wasn't the end of the story. If anything, it was just the beginning. 2 months after Natalie moved out, I received a call from an unfamiliar number. The woman on the line introduced herself as Claire Morrison, Derek's wife. "I think we need to talk," she said. Something in her voice made me agree. We arranged to meet that afternoon at a downtown coffee shop. Claire wasn't what I had pictured. She looked to be in her early 40s, with strands of gray she didn't bother to dye and weary eyes that carried years of silent battles. She ordered her coffee black and wasted no time. "How long have you known about Derek and your wife?" she asked. "About 2 months," I replied. "You?" She gave a bitter laugh, though there was no humor in it. "Try 2 years." 2 years. While I'd been blind to Natalie's affair, Claire had been living with the truth almost from the start. But unlike me, she hadn't confronted him right away. She'd been methodically collecting evidence, documenting everything, preparing for the right moment. "Derek's done this 3 times that I know of," she told me. "Every time I caught him, Derek swore it would never happen again. And each time, I let myself believe him because we had 2 kids, and I convinced myself holding the family together mattered more than my pride. But this time was different. Claire had reached her breaking point. She was no longer willing to play the forgiving wife who quietly patched up her husband's messes. "I've been documenting everything for the past year and a half," she said, sliding a thick manila folder across the table. Inside were financial statements showing hotel bills and gift purchases, credit card records, screenshots of text conversations salvaged from his old phones, photographs, even surveillance footage from the very hotels where he'd met my wife. The sheer weight of the evidence dwarfed anything I had managed to gather during my short weeks of amateur investigating. Claire's work was meticulous, methodical, sharp, and fueled by the kind of pain only long-term betrayal could carve into someone. "Why are you sharing this with me?" I asked. She leaned in, her voice calm but firm. "Because Derek doesn't realize I know about your wife. He assumes I only discovered his earlier affairs. But I've been tracking his current movements, and I know every detail, when and where he meets Natalie, what they talk about, even the future they think they're building." The word future hit me like a blow to the gut. Claire nodded grimly. "Derek's been telling Natalie he's going to leave me once your divorce is finalized. He's promised her that once you're both free, they'll move in together. He's even been searching for apartments for them." The betrayal cut deeper knowing Natalie hadn't just been caught up in a fling. She'd been laying the foundations for a new life while tearing down the one we already had. But Claire wasn't finished. She drew a breath and said something that changed everything. "The truth is, Derek has no plans to leave me. He tells me he wants to fix our marriage. He swears he's ended things with the other women. He's even suggested we renew our vows, as if to start fresh." I stared at her, struggling to process. "So, he's lying to both of you?" "Exactly," she said. "And I'm done letting him get away with it. More than that, I refuse to let him keep hurting others the way he's hurt me. Your wife may not deserve your forgiveness, but she doesn't deserve the trap Derek is leading her into, either." Then she laid out her plan, the most ethically tangled proposition I'd ever heard. "I want to invite both of them to dinner," she explained. "At my house. Derek thinks I'm planning a romantic evening where I tell him I forgive him and want to start again. Natalie believes it's the night Derek will finally confess our affair to me and ask for a divorce." Her strategy was brutal. She would set the stage perfectly. A carefully prepared dinner, Derek's favorite meal, her wedding china, even a bottle of wine from the year they got married. To anyone looking in, it would appear she was trying to mend her marriage, not end it. On that night, during dessert, I would arrive under the pretense of returning something Derek had supposedly left at my place. With my own evidence in hand, Claire would unveil hers, a devastating archive of 2 years' worth of deception. Together, our combined truth would destroy Derek's carefully woven lies. Natalie would realize the man she'd sacrificed our marriage for never planned to commit to her. Derek would be cornered by both his wife and his mistress's husband, and both of them would be forced to face the real consequences of their actions. It was cruel, calculated, designed to humiliate. But after months of betrayal and helplessness, the thought of reclaiming control was intoxicating. I agreed. The dinner was set for a Friday night in December. Claire spent days preparing, cooking Derek's favorite dishes, setting the table with her best china, arranging the atmosphere so convincingly it could have fooled anyone. I parked around the corner at 8:30 p.m., waiting for her signal. When the text arrived, my hands shook as I walked toward their front door. Through the window, I caught sight of Derek and Natalie sitting at the table, wine glasses raised, looking comfortable, happy, even. The sight made my chest ache. Claire opened the door with a smile sharp enough to cut glass.
Ryan.
Perfect timing. Derek, look who dropped by. The expression on Derek's face when he saw me was worth every sleepless night I'd endured. Natalie turned ghostly pale, her wine glass slipping from her hand and shattering across the floor. Claire, what is this? Derek stammered. But Claire was already moving toward the dining table, where she had neatly arranged folder after folder of evidence. I thought it was time we all had an honest conversation, she said coolly. Derek, you remember Ryan, don't you? Natalie's husband. The next 30 minutes were excruciating, yet unforgettable. Claire presented her files piece by piece, explaining each document, each photo, each recording. Derek tried to deny it all. Then he shifted blame. Eventually, he just sat there in stunned silence as the weight of his double life collapsed around him. Natalie wept, not tears of regret, but tears of humiliation and fury. When Claire showed her the texts where Derek swore to his wife he'd ended every affair and wanted to recommit, Natalie looked at him with such venom that I almost pitied him. The night ended in chaos. Derek storming out of his own house, Natalie calling her sister for a ride, and Claire and I sitting in her kitchen, splitting a bottle of wine in exhausted silence. Do you feel better? She asked softly. I'm not sure, I admitted. Do you? She nodded. I feel like I can finally move on. For 2 years, I've been living in limbo, knowing my marriage was a lie, but not having the strength to end it. Tonight, Derek made that decision for me. That Monday, Claire filed for divorce. Derek attempted to reconcile with her, then with Natalie, then even with an earlier mistress, but his reputation was in tatters. Word spread quickly through their workplace, their friends, their families. He eventually relocated to another city, but the damage lingered. Natalie and I never spoke again after that night. Our divorce was finalized 2 months later, and she moved across the country for a clean slate. From what I later heard, she spent a long time in therapy, trying to work through her issues with commitment and truth. As for Claire and me, we became unlikely allies. Not romantically, but as two people bound by a storm they'd both endured. She leaned on me during the hardest parts of single parenthood, and I leaned on her during the loneliest days after my divorce. Looking back, I still don't know if what we did was right. It was cruel. It caused pain that rippled outward. But it was honest, something that had been missing all along. Sometimes truth isn't pretty. It's brutal, messy, and devastating. But it's still truth. 3 years later, I'm in a relationship with someone who values honesty above everything else. Claire has built a peaceful life as a single mother, giving her children stability Derek never could. Derek himself is out there somewhere, likely repeating his mistakes. And the strange part? I'm grateful for it all. Not for the pain, not for the betrayal, but for the clarity. I learned I was stronger than I ever thought, that I deserved more than I had settled for, and that unexpected partnerships can sometimes guide you back to yourself. Natalie's affair destroyed the life I thought I wanted, but it gave me the chance to build the one I truly needed. Claire's act of revenge didn't just uncover Derek's lies. It uncovered the truth about all of us. Messy, complicated, painful, but real. Sometimes things must collapse before they can be rebuilt. Sometimes destruction is the first step toward reconstruction. That's my story. Tell me in the comments, would you have handled it the same way? And don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this.